Alright guys, let's talk geometry today. I've got two main ways of cutting 5-point stars. One's with 36-degree angle points, and others with 45-degree angle points. Now the 45 degree is where people get really confused, and believe it or not, I've had some rage emails sent to me about this. But they're just not listening, so I'm going to explain things. A lot of you actually do understand this stuff, but I went in some Facebook groups recently and noticed a lot of people making comments about how the angles don't work. That's kind of why I want to make this video. Anyways, let's start with this star and then we'll tackle the 45-degree angle star, which is the most confusing one. Alright, you've seen me make these before. I usually start by cutting the 36-degree angle point, and to do that, I set my saw to 54 degrees. Now, this video is more about the inner angles, because that's the confusing part. So let's say you've already got this point cut, and you have to set your miter saw to 54 degrees to get the 36. Remember, the angles on a protractor are different than the angles on a miter saw. So here's the math. 90 minus 36 equals 54. So if you want 36 degrees, you got to set your saw to 54 degrees to get that point. Anyways, I'm going to assume you already have that point, and now let's talk about the inner angles here. For these inner angles, you have to set your saw to 36 degrees, which is pretty common knowledge at this point for geometrically correct 5-point stars. But let's say you wanted to know the math behind it. Well, let's just look at a regular 1x4 here. If I wanted this angle to be 72 degrees, which, by the way, is what you need for a 5-point star, well, I would have to split this into two triangles, and I would have to know that this side over here is 36 degrees, and this side is 36 degrees. So what do I need to do if I want to cut 36 degrees? Well, 90 minus 36 equals 54. So I set my saw to 54 degrees, cut once, flip it over, make another cut. Another thing to note, when you set up a stop block like this point will always end up directly in the center, so you don't have to measure anything. Very cool. Now you might think we can set this to 54 degrees in order to get the 72 degrees on this piece. We actually can't because we're starting on an angle. So to do the math for this, we're going to split this diamond in half, and we've got two triangles here. We know that this is 36, so half of 36 is 18. So our workpiece is actually starting on an 18-degree angle. 90 degrees minus 18 equals 72. So in order to get this 36-degree angle from the center to here, the math is 72 minus 36, which equals 36. So I would set my saw to 36 degrees, and we'd be able to cut that angle. Alright, you get the point. Now let's talk about the 45-degree angle star. So of course, to get this point, set your saw to 45 degrees. Super easy. Let's talk about these inner angles here. Now some people think that you can take this 45-degree angle point, put it in here, and still set your saw to 36 degrees, even though I say 31.6. And that's where the rage emails come in. I know. They'll set it to 36, they'll cut it. Huge gaps. It will not fit together. So here's the math behind how this works, all right? I think this will help a lot of people out there. Well, maybe not a lot, maybe just a few people that are maybe questioning it, because one of the main comments I get is, well, 31.6 times 2 does not equal 72 degrees. Well, you're right, but remember, we're starting on an angle already, so we have to readjust everything basically. So half of 45 degrees is 22.5, so we're starting on a 22.5 degree angle with our workpiece here. So here's the math. 90 minus 22.5 equals 67.5. 67.5 minus 36, which is half of this angle, equals 31.5. Aha! That's not 31.6, but we'll get to that. So technically, you need to set your saw to 31.5 to get exactly this 72-degree angle that you need for a 5-point star. But I've been telling people to do 31.6. And that's because there's a preset on your saw, and it still works. Anyways, I hope that helps, guys. I know it sounds a little complicated, but if you rewind it and watch it 10 times, it might make sense. Oh yeah!